Welcome to reading lesson number 1, the overview of the reading section. Before you start this lesson and every lesson, you will need to have the following to hand: your training booklet, a pen or pencil, a rubber, and in other lessons you will need a timer. You can follow the lessons in your training booklet where you will find all the reading practice exercises, space to enter your answers, and the answers in the back of your training booklet. After this lesson, you will have a clear overview of what to expect in the whole of the reading section. You will have learnt tips and strategies on how best to approach the section in general and have a chance to practice IELTS questions using real materials before we move on to the main lessons. This is the second part of the whole test. It is a different test for the academic and the general, although you will be sitting in the same room. You will get a test booklet, an answer sheet, a pencil and a rubber. You have 60 minutes to do the whole test. We recommend you take 20 minutes per section, as there are 3 sections. There are lots of different question types. You have to transfer your answers in pencils to the answer sheet, and there is no extra time for transfer in the reading, unlike the listening section. So you have to work very quickly. These are the different question types. We will be going through each question type in the 13 lessons that we have. For each question type, we'll look at tips and strategies on how best to approach it, and you will get 2 chances to practice each question type, one with me guiding you and one alone. In the academic reading section, there are 3 passages which get more difficult as they progress. The texts are from magazines, journals and newspapers. There is no literature. It is marked in the same way as the listening, so that you get 1 point for each correct answer, which must be spelt correctly, and it has to be from the passage. Again, you will not be penalised for the wrong answer, so always guess. It's better than writing nothing. Here on the right you can see the scores table. You can also see it on page 6. Here you can, when you do a whole test, you can calculate what band score you would get by looking at the raw score, which is the score you get out of 40, which is on the right. Now we're going to give you some tips and strategies on how to approach the test in general, how to read the passages, how long to spend on each question, what you can do before you start reading, and how and when to transfer your answers. First of all, we'll look at some strategies for the timing. First of all, you have to answer all of the questions in 60 minutes. So we recommend you spend 20 minutes on each of the 3 sections or passages. That is including transfer time, which gives you about 1.5 minutes to read, answer, find the question and transfer each answer. There is not enough time to read the passages intensively or in detail, and you don't need to read the whole passage intensively in order to ask the questions. There are always 7 stages here to help you answer the questions more effectively and faster. We will list them here and then go through each stage in detail during the practice tasks in each lesson. You don't need to remember all of these things. They are listed on your booklet, on page 6, and we will repeat them in each lesson. Firstly, you need to read the headline or the title. Don't worry if you don't understand it all. Just try to get an idea of what the passage is about. It's really not about understanding every word in the headline. Then, depending on the question type, you need to decide if the questions are in order or not in order. Then you need to decide if you should scan or skim the passage. Again, this depends on the question type. We will always tell you what to do. Then you can start to find the answers. In the case of it being in order, you would start with question 1 And once you've found it, you should always underline the answer. We will always underline it so it's easier to check later. We'll take a closer look at all of these points in a minute. Then you should write the answers which are from the passage next to the question numbers, or you should write the answers or circle the option on the question numbers. And then you have to repeat this process for all the questions or passages in the set. And lastly, you transfer your answers after the section to the reading answer sheet, which is a separate piece of paper. Now we're going to start with the first thing you need to do. So looking at the headline or title, pictures and photos if there are any. Sometimes there are no headlines, titles or pictures, in which case you need to skim the first paragraph. Let's look at the headline in your training booklet, page 7. There are 3 headlines. Take a bit of time to read them all and see if you can get some information on what the passages are about. Right, now let's have a look together. A is quite clear. The headline is a sentence and it is easy to understand what the article is about. B is less clear to understand as it uses an idiom in the expression to pull strings. If you don't know what this means, then you can skim the first paragraph, which is in italics, and then it should be clearer what the article is about. But even if after reading the whole article you still don't understand the idiom, it really doesn't matter. It is unlikely that you will understand everything in a passage anyway, and it isn't necessary. We'll be looking at this a bit more later. C actually has no headline, so you need to skim or read the first paragraph. To reiterate, it really is important to read the headline or title and look at any other information, as you need to get an idea of what the passage is about before you start reading. You would also do this in your own language. You don't need to understand every word, as it isn't necessary in order to answer the questions. For each type of question, they are either in order or not. It is important to know this, and we will tell you which question types are in order or not in each lesson, and it is also written in your training booklet on page 6 for reference, so you can always look back at this list. By the end of these lessons, or when you do the test, you should be able to remember if the questions are in order or not. Remembering if the questions are in order will help you work more effectively in the exam. Let's have a look at page 8 in your training booklet. You can see 2 examples of passages here. In the first, you can see that the answers are in order, so the answers are in the same order as the questions. You will find the answer to question 1 before you find the answer to question 2. And the second example, they are not in order. So that means that the answer to question 1 might be at the end of the passage and the answer to question 5 at the beginning. There are 3 different reading strategies you will need in order to be able to complete the questions in the 60 minutes. You have to remember that you never have to read the whole passage intensively. And you will obviously never have to be able to translate it or remember anything. The first strategy is to scan the text, which means you have to read the text very quickly to find the key words such as names, numbers, places and things that stand out, maybe even words in bold, for example. It's like getting a bird's eye view of the passage, like a bird flying over the sea picking out the fish. The second strategy is to skim, which means again to read quickly, and this time you're looking for the main idea in the paragraph or the passage. Sometimes you will have to read parts of the passage intensively, but remember you never have to read the whole passage in this way. Once you've looked at the question type and decided to scan or skim, and if the questions are in order or not, then you can start to find the answers. Remember that you should never read all the questions first, as you probably won't remember them unless you have a photographic memory. So we suggest you find the answers one at a time. Either you start at the beginning of the text if they aren't in order, or you start with the questions if they are in order. To highlight why this is the most effective way of answering the questions, let's look again at the example on page 8. In the example A, where the answers are in order, it makes sense to start with question 1, as you will find it in the passage before question 2. Whereas if we look at passage B and imagine we were to start by looking for the answer to question 1, we would have to read the whole text more than once, and so therefore we would be wasting time. And lastly, once you've found your answer, it's important to underline it, as when you go back to check the answer and transfer it, you won't have to look for it again. It is important to write the answers in your question booklet next to the question numbers and not on the passage itself. It makes it much easier when it comes to transferring. All your answers are from the passage or question booklet. You never use your own words. And when you do a task in these lessons, we will tell you where the answers are in the passage. So we'll say it's in paragraph B, line 4, for example, so that if you didn't get the correct answer, you can see where it is in the passage. Now we're going to look at how to transfer your answers. After each section or passage, you should transfer your answers in pencil to an answer sheet. It is important to check your spelling, although here all you need to do is to copy the words, as all the words are from the passage. You need to check the word limit. There will always be a maximum word limit. You need to transfer quickly and carefully, and you can see an example of the answer sheet on page 75 in your training booklet. You might ask yourself why you can't transfer straight away, and we suggest you wait to transfer because otherwise you're not going to have an opportunity to check your answers at all. Whereas if you write them first of all on the question booklet, you will automatically be checking them when you transfer them. Now we're going to put all of that into practice in a short answer question task. That is a type of question. After this, we will go through the different question types in the lessons following. So in lessons number 2 to 13. So you'll have plenty of opportunities to practice. Now you can go to page 9 in your training booklet. First of all, you need to read the headline, so I'll give you a bit of time to do that. The article is about the story of sand, the geology of sand, so it's a scientific text. Next, we need to look at what type of question it is. And here you can see that first of all on page 10. And you can see that they are short answer questions. You can see that as they use question words which are specific, such as who, why, and what. The answers here are in order. So you will start finding the answers by reading question 1. Again, we will always tell you whether the questions are in order or not, and if you have to scan or skim. In this case, you will need to scan for the answers as the questions are specific. You know exactly what to look for. If the question, for example, is where, then you will need to scan for a place in the text. Again, you don't need to read the whole passage. You just need to fly over it, scanning for places that could be the answers, and when you find one, see if it is the one referred to in the question. Now we can start with question 1. Read the question and find out what sort of answer you need to look for. Right, so you will need to scan for 2 nouns, 2 things that a man made. Now you can start scanning at the beginning of the passage and stop when you have found 1 or 2 man-made things. Check that they fit in with the question, and if yes, then underline them and write the answers next to question 1. I will give you 1 minute to do the first question. You can start now and I'll tell you when the time is up. Your time is up now. The answers you should have are concrete and glass. They can be in any order. Now you can do the remaining questions 2 to 6 alone. You have 5 minutes to answer the questions. I will tell you when the time is up. You can start now. Your time is up now. Now let's have a look at the answers, which you can read here and in the back of your training booklet on page 74. You can also see here where the answers are in the passage and the paragraph number is given. These are all the possible answers and words in brackets are optional. If you need more time, just press pause. That is the end of lesson 1, and now you can start the reading lessons with lesson 2, which is on short answer questions, so practicing the question we just practiced now. First, you will do a short quiz.